down to business.
When he drinks, he thinks.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the #1 liquid-fueled, liquid-lubricated show on the interwebs. This is the Whiskey Musings Broadcast, and I am your host, ever so humble, Rick. You know, I've got to be honest, having Mark K off has kind of thrown everything off. If for those of you that don't follow Mark K or don't listen to him, he took the entire week off and has a stand-in. Now, there's some of us like myself who are, boycotting, I guess you could say, the show, because the show itself is not being streamed because he is missing. I'm guessing that's probably due to a remote situation or whatever, but I haven't watched yet. And of course, Dan Bongino has also been off the last couple of days having fun river rafting, according to his Facebook account. He's been having fun river rafting. So anyway, and no, my last name is not Roll, although that's interesting. Rick Roll, I get it. It's very good. Very good. Okay. So tonight I've got a little bit of a mashup of a bunch of different stories, different articles, things like that. So I've got it's going to be a lot. And unfortunately, I also didn't have a submission for this week's Pet of the Week. So there won't be a Pet of the Week this week. But that's okay because I've got a couple of wonderful questions queued up for Saturday. By the way, if you want to send your picture of your pet in for the Pet of the Week, do so at fans@whiskeymusings.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at whiskeymusings, all one word, all lowercase, .online. And of course, send me, the pet's name and maybe some other pertinent details so that I can kind of talk about them on the air, and we'll go ahead and do that. All right. So next thing is, let me go ahead and get this out of the way. So, let's do this one. All right. The Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission: to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined by the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, IOTC, that's India Oscar Tango Charlie, Whiskey Musings, again, all one word, all lowercase, .online, to sign up. And while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is iotc.whiskeymusings.online to get great content to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's iotc.whiskeymusings.online. Or if you want to purchase this fabulous, bump the microphone, boom. If you want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, go to constitution.whiskeymusings.online. You can see they stitch the binding. It's really good quality product. Go check them out today. And I thank you to the Institute on the Constitution for allowing me to be an affiliate. All right. So, I talked about the Declaration of Independence a little bit on my Independence Day special last Saturday. So there's a couple things in there that obviously fall along with the IOTC. I've perused a bunch of articles, and there's been some things that's been happening on social media and that, which made me ponder the question, are the Dems actually losing some steam here? And part of this, I think, is because of the deflation that they feel over the Roe versus Wade decision, the gun control decision, and also the EPA decision by the Supreme Court of the United States last week. And a lot of it has to deal with, there's a couple of interesting things that have been running around. The Dems have felt like the abortion issue should have given them a bump in an incredible, give them a bump in terms of momentum. And unfortunately, fortunately for us, but unfortunately for them, it really hasn't materialized. And I've got a little something on that as well to kind of talk about as far as that goes. But first, a couple of really staunch liberal Democrats who you can almost guarantee, just like, Sonny of The View and Joy Reid and Joy Behar, the two Joys who are not so joyful, you can expect them to just sort of say something that's incredibly stupid, that's incredibly, left-leaning ideology focused. Okay. And I've got something on that here in just a second. But I'm reminded, of course, that I have to show you tonight. I am back to drinking proper 12, proper number 12. And that's because of the fact that I have a lot more of it. I don't know if you can actually see. Well, you maybe. Yeah, you can actually see there's a lot of liquid here. So I'm having to drink more of it than my other two favorites. I haven't been able to go and get other bottles. But proper number 12 is tonight's liquid lubrication of choice in the America shot glass, of course. All right. So this came out, and it actually came out on the 4th of July. And it made me wonder, and to be honest with you, this person took a lot of backlash after saying this, but it made me wonder what in the heck is going on and whether or not the position of the Dems is starting to sort of fade off. And I've got several articles here to get through just to kind of demonstrate this. And the first thing, of course, has to deal with this particular. This is a tweet, and this is from Bette Midler. And you can always, you can pretty much guarantee that she's going to say something seriously left wing, seriously left out there kind of deal. But this is sort of amazing. And in all caps, she says, "Women of the world, we are being stripped of our rights over our bodies, our lives, and even our name. They don't call us women anymore. They call us birthing people, or menstruators, or even people with vaginas. Don't let them erase you. Every human on earth owes you." And it was funny that she mentions this. She took a beating. She took a beating after this. And the reason being is because of the fact that, she obviously is talking about the whole concept of the libs that women by itself. If you think about it, you've got the whole transgender ideology. You've got the transgenders in women's sports ideology. You've got the whole thing about, women as a woman. You can't even define what is a woman. A lot of them won't even define what a woman is because of the fact that they're looking to add the inclusivity of the men who want to become women. And so this came out, and I just was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that she even did that. And she took a lot of heat over this. But there was also those who jumped on her, jumped up in her defense. For an example, the phrase birthing people was supposed to be meant as all inclusive. And then, of course, there's those that are out there who believe that men can menstruate. They're wrong, but there are people out there who say that, and the fact that, you know, people have vaginas, whether you're a man or a woman or whatever. But anyway, so it's really kind of interesting that she even said this, because this sort of crossed a line that I think a lot of liberal Democrats don't want you to cross, because she's actually starting to try and define a woman. She's starting to suggest that women are disappearing. And that's exactly what the left is going after. They are trying to meld women and men together. So, you know, first we had toxic masculinity and all that's gone. And now you have the beta male. And now they want to try and meld women into this sort of Morpheus blob that we are all just human beings and there's no differences between us. When, you know, practical science and everything else can tell you that we have differences. There is plenty of scientific evidence that demonstrates, from at least on a biological and physical level, there's a lot of difference between men and women. And so they're trying to cancel them out. They're trying to cancel out those differences and make it seem like, oh, we're all just part of the human race. Well, that's true to a point. There, you know, we do have generally a binary system for the most part. There are exceptions. I'm not going to deny that. But for the most part, it is a generally binary. You're either male or you're female. So anyway, she posted that and took a lot of flack for it. Another thing that came out, which this one was kind of surprising. I mean, Amazon's owner, Jeff Bezos, is probably about as left wing as you can get in some of the more, shall we say, millionaire kind of groups and so on and so forth. And he took a shot at Joe Biden on this, where Joe Biden, this was his tweet, or whoever is actually writing them, because let's be honest, I mean, he's probably not writing these because there actually is spelling and punctuation and sentence structure in here. But he says, he posted this on the 2nd of July. My message to the companies running gas stations and setting prices at the pump is simple. This is a time of war and global peril. Bring down the price you are charging at the pump to reflect the cost you're paying for the product, and do it now. Now, Jeff Bezos obviously decided that whoever wrote that wasn't very smart. And here is what Jeff Bezos put back. He says, ouch. Inflation is far too important a problem for the White House to keep making statements like this. It's either straight ahead misdirection or a deep misunderstanding of basic market dynamics. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, I'm not a fan of Jeff Bezos as a person. You know, he has his quirks and things like that, just like all of us do. But the reality of it is that this is pretty amazing that he actually has kind of sort of jumped on the bandwagon of this tweet of the path that Elon Musk is taking. And so, you know, rather than talk to Biden, you know, personally, he put it in the public forum, in the public sphere. And a lot of people have jumped on this, especially in the conservative side, and been like, oh, wow, this is a problem. Well, this is what Biden has been getting because of the fact that he has had a serious problem in his approval ratings. They've been continually dropping for the last couple of weeks. And so, you know, something like this is just amazing that it's even out there. But Biden's not the only one that's been taking some hits, as well as, you know, Bette Midler and so on and so forth. We have our squad buddy, Ilhan Omar, went out to a Somali music event. It was celebrating a Somali artist. This was the first time that this individual had come and played in the United States ever. And she apparently wanted to commemorate that. She was going to, do a speech and welcome him for coming here and so on and so forth in Minneapolis. Of course, as a part of her district, there were a lot of people there. And apparently, according to this article in Newsweek, apparently she was booed by a mostly Somali crowd. So as you know, she is a Somali American. And she was at the concert. She stepped onto the stage, and apparently a lot of people booed her. And not only that, but they also shouted, "Get out," and shouted, "Get the F out of here." So apparently she's not all that much liked that much anymore in her home area. And Newsweek kind of put it to her potentially, let's see, where does it saying? So they say that it's because of her positions on abortion rights and that kind of stuff, because she is pledged to fight and codify Roe into federal law and has also called for the nation's highest court to be expanded. They're not really sure, but they're being suggestive. The article says it's not immediately clear what prompted the crowd's reaction, but some suggested that it was Omar's support for abortion and LGBTQ rights. So, yeah, the funny part about it is that she, she's part of the squad. She's part of the chosen ones, I think, to sort of take over for the some of the Democrats, and she, along with AOC, and a couple of others, I can't remember all of the ones that are in the squad, but they were the darlings. If you remember a couple of years ago, they were the darlings of the Democrat Party. They were the new faces of the Democrat Party. In fact, Ben Shapiro calls AOC so fresh, so face. And she, these four individuals, four women, were supposed to be the next generation of the Democrat Party. Well, apparently she's not doing so well in her home district and home state, at least home state. I don't know if it was in her district, but it was definitely in her home state. And it was with people who share her nationality and genealogy. So Ilhan Omar, though, isn't the only one, because again, a lot of people who, and if you recall this, at least from the standpoint of woke companies, woke organizations, a lot of people have, joined woke organizations and have been able to do things when they're woke. Like, for an example, when President Trump got elected the first time, a lot of people cried and took extra days off, and they were so sad. And you listen to these companies and they keep talking about how they're going to extend family leave, and even if you're men, you can have I guess the parental leave or whatever, and they call it pregnancy leave or whatever. I don't even know what it is, but this article came out, and this is kind of interesting because a lot of people who are dealing with woke employees, well, apparently this gentleman, I'm going to call him a gentleman because I'm not sure, Michael Lopez, that's his name. So he was fired from his job at Universal Music Group because he refused to work while mourning the Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. I mean, really? You're mourning the decision that's not even going to affect you. I mean, seriously, it's not even going to affect you. I've said it on this program. I've talked about it. There are so many people who don't understand what Roe v. Wade actually did. And I think he's actually in New York, come to think about it. Let's see, where is he? Yeah, the article doesn't seem to say. But yeah, I mean, this is just crazy. You can take a look at the article. You can read through his post on LinkedIn and so on and so forth. But it's good that that the company has actually stood up and basically said, look, you refusing to work, you don't come in. Okay. I think that's just crazy. I mean, if anybody wanted to like refuse work for, I don't know, anything that's happened over the last, 50, 60 years. Okay. Anyway, this is just nuts. Totally crazy. Totally nuts. The person, this individual deserved to be fired because he decided to not come into work for, mourning Roe v. Wade overturning. It's just nuts. That just kind of shows you the generational, thought process of we deserve everything you deserve to, you need to give us everything kind of thing. So anyway, now the other thing that's happening. So on the Independence Day celebration in Chicago in Highland Park, there was a horrific act done by a crazy person. And I've got some information on that here coming up a little bit later on in the show. But before that, you had Joe Biden taking off on a Saturday, signing the quote red flag laws and the gun control legislation and so on and so forth that was out there. And the thing about it is that, a lot of people are like, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to, provide us gun regulations, gun control, so on and so forth. Well, couple of things. First of all, this from the Washington Examiner. Gun sales passed 1 million for, check this, the 35th consecutive month. So this is almost 3 years worth of gun sales passing 1 million in sales every month. Okay. We're getting more and more people who are going to be part of the gun ownership. And we know from other shows and other articles, we know that women and people of color are the biggest group that is growing in the gun ownership realm. And why is that? Well, I think a lot of it has to deal with the fact that you have out of control DAs who are not prosecuting in these cities, and crime is on the rise. And so because of that, and you also have, police departments that are not doing their jobs for whatever reason, whether it's they don't have enough manpower, or they're just, there's just all kinds of issues within the legal community. And so more and more people are starting to realize that the responsibility of protecting themselves falls on them, not on the government. And so what you're seeing is a lot of gun sales. Now, what's weird about this, or I shouldn't say weird, but what's ironic about this is because of the push for gun control, and you have these kinds of gun sales. This is beginning to get really, really interesting. I think it's going to be setting up some very interesting fights in the near future in the legal system, and that kind of stuff. So this is going to be something to definitely watch and pay attention to. Now, as I said in my opening monologue, the Dems were hoping for a political bump off of the abortion. And honestly, it hasn't seemed to materialize. I've seen some articles on this, but here's where there's a bit of a dichotomy within the Democrat Party when it comes to abortion. First of all, the left believes that everybody didn't want to have abortion rolled back. And while that's partially true, the part that's true is the fact that if you ask generally everybody, like I've said on this program, first trimester abortions are generally acceptable to the majority of the public. It's when you start getting into second and third trimester that things start breaking down. Well, the other thing that's out there is the fact that the abortion issue, while has been, let's say, pushed from the side of that it was settled law before the Supreme Court overturned it. We all know that's not the case. I explained that pretty significantly in one of my other episodes when it got overturned. I think it's pretty intelligent to sit there and say, hey, all that is done is just turned it back to the states where it rightfully belongs. But apparently there's a group of people out there known as Gen Z who don't understand that simple concept. And so because they don't understand that simple concept, it's setting up a dichotomy and an adversarial relationship between Gen Z and the rest of the Democrat Party. Because a lot of the Democrat Party is like, older and a little wiser, been around a little longer. And so they understand that, okay, this isn't the end of the world. This is just a small temporary setback or something along those lines. And so one of the things that you will see is that the younger folks in the Democrat Party have been pushing harder and harder and harder and more for abortion and, to codify Roe and everything else. That prompted Biden to come out with the whole thing of he would support a filibuster or taking down the filibuster. He would support, packing the Supreme Court. Well, I've seen articles that have come out that are saying that he doesn't believe he has the votes in order to overturn the filibuster. And that comes in the form of Manchin and Sinema. So Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema have once again been the level-headed, intelligent adults that are part of today's Democrat Party. Now, that's scary to say because they are Democrats, but they basically are saying that they will not support any measure to remove the filibuster. And that has to deal with the fact that the filibuster, while it looks like it's stopping things from progressing now, what they don't, or what those two understand that the rest of the Democrat Party, especially the younger folks in the Democrat Party, don't seem to get, is that that is a double-edged sword. It may influence and help you now by removing it, but when it comes time for when the parties get switched in the Senate, the Republicans are going to be able to do a whole bunch of stuff that the Dems may not want. So this kind of indicates that there isn't going to be as much of a motivational bump as what a lot of people think in terms of the whole deal with the Democrat Party. And then, of course, as Buddy so eloquently pointed out, that the Constitution is the last word and it's above any federal law passed. Chances are any federal law that got passed, honestly, would probably go to the Supreme Court anyway. It would be challenged and it would go to the Supreme Court. And just like the Roe v. Wade reversal with this particular court, we would probably end up in a situation where it would be repealed or overturned as well. Now, so let's see. So far we've got Bette Midler on the women's issue. We've got Jeff Bezos on the gas and inflation issue. We've got Ilhan Omar being booed. We've got an employee who's been kicked out because of the woke. We've got gun sales going all crazy. Okay. And then we have this abortion issue. So these are major issues in the Democrat Party. What else is left? Well, my lovely governor here in the state of Washington focuses on one thing and one thing only, and that's climate change. I've got a hat tip to one of my Twitter followers. His handle is Brandon Hannibal Donkey, I believe. Anyway, he uses a donkey as his avatar, and he posted a link to an article to this next article here. And this is from the Signs of the Times. And you got to read this headline. NASA admits climate change occurs because of changes in Earth's or solar orbit, not because of SUVs and fossil fuels. Now, I don't know the Signs of the Times political leanings. I really don't. But that got me to go and actually search on NASA's website directly. And the reason that they brought it up is because apparently back in 2000, NASA published some articles about a guy who had a theory with regard to a variation in orbital eccentricity. It's right down here. So everybody seems to think, like this first picture here, this top one, that, you know, the Earth orbits in a circular pattern. Well, anybody that has gone through science knows that that's not the case. So the actual case is that the Earth is in an elliptical pattern. That's part of the reason why in the summertime we get hot. In the wintertime, we're not as warm. It also has to deal with the tilt of the Earth, which is the other factor that's involved on this. And so you look at the axial obliquity, sorry, let me try and pronounce that right. So that can range, that the tilt of the Earth can actually change up to, 22 to 24 degrees. And then, of course, that changes where the sun actually hits the Earth and so on and so forth. Okay. You also have some other things like Buddy is pointing out, solar cycles, controlling the temperature of the Earth. So, how oftentimes we get hit with solar flares, solar heat, whether the sun is hotter this year or not, etc. So there's a whole bunch of different variables. And what it is it's a theory that was put out by this man, Milutin Milankovitch. Boy, I butchered that. Anyway, he was born in 1879, went to 1958 was when he died. Now, this article published by Steve Graham in March 24 of 2000 notes that the astrophysicist, and I'm just going to call him Double M, just to avoid having to say the name over and over again. But Double M is best known for developing one of the most significant theories related to Earth motions and long-term climate change. So what his theory basically was, he dedicated his career to developing a mathematical theory of climate that was based on the seasonal and latitudinal variations of solar radiation received by the Earth, which of course is affected by the elliptical plane and what angle the axis is actually sitting on. Now, it's now known as the Milankovitch theory. And what that theory states is that the Earth travels through space around the sun's cyclical variations in three elements of Earth-Sun geometry combine to produce variations in the amount of solar energy that reaches Earth. One is the variations of the orbital, the elliptical pattern, the shape of the orbit around the sun. The second one is the angle that the Earth is sitting at the time that the sun's energy hits the Earth. And then precession, which is the change in the direction of the Earth's axis of rotation, i.e. how we spin like a top. And if you notice, even a spinning top is not perfectly balanced. And so it can vary a little bit. It wobbles back and forth. That's basically what he is saying. Now, the funny thing about this, and this is a 3-part, so I included all 3 links, but this is a 3-part article. And part number 2, it basically talks a little bit more about the orbital variations and has those images that I've already showed you and that kind of stuff. But the key here is that back in 2000, NASA released these articles, and realistically, for about 50 years, his theory was largely ignored. However, they went and dug up some soil down in the ocean. And they've studied it, and they've actually demonstrated that over thousands of years, guess what? The climate's changed. It's moved. It's been changing all of this time. And as you'll notice, it's not as affected by human beings as what everyone previously thought. So, and in 1976 in particular, it was a study published in the journal Science that examined the deep sea sediment cores and found that his theory did in fact correspond to periods of climate change. And the authors were able to extract the record of temperature change going back 450,000 years and found that major variations in climate were closely associated with changes in the geometry of the Earth's orbit. And indeed, ice ages had occurred when the Earth was going through different stages of orbital variation. Okay. So NASA has known since at least 2000, but especially back in 1976, that climate change is more of a factor of our orbit around the sun and how the axis of the Earth sits and so on and so forth. This is why this is not plastered on the front page of all the newspapers, especially when you're dealing with people who talk about human beings' effect on climate change. I'll bet you that John Kerry has never read these articles. He has never looked at this study. He has never done any kind of scientific movement, and Al Gore before him. This is part of the reason why we don't have the doomsday outlook. I mean, even Barack Obama, who was talking about the sea levels will rise, bought a house in Martha's Vineyard that's right on the ocean. So give me a break, guys. I mean, I'm done. There is the climate change, while human beings may be able to affect a small degree, it is not to the level that everybody thinks it is. And the Earth is naturally going through these kinds of changes on a regular basis. Okay. So with all of this stuff, all of these things that are out there now. So again, we've got, all of the Democrat talking points, the leftist talking points of all these things. Like we have to go to EVs because of climate change, and we have to get rid of oil and fossil fuels. Well, that's all gone too. Because again, scientifically speaking, it's because of our situation where we sit in terms of the sun as to why the climate is changing. So all of these things are combining now, and they're not only taking on the just from right to left, but they're also causing the Democrat Party, to falter. So one of the things that is happening, which I don't know if anybody, polls, I kind of toss polls out. I kind of toss them out because of the fact that I don't necessarily believe, you can manipulate people to answer the way that you want just by phrasing a certain question a certain way. However, a couple of polls have come out, and I wanted to show you again that Biden is in a lot of trouble here. And one of the things is his approval rating. And his approval rating over time has just been dropping. If you can see the graphic that I'm doing here, his approval rating is just crashing, and it keeps going down. And as of right now, according to civics.com, his approval rating is even below a third. So a third is 33.333%. He's sitting at 30% that approve, and 12% apparently neither approve or disapprove. I don't know where they got that 12%. Honestly, it's probably just people that just sort of skipped the question, didn't want to say anything. But over almost 60% disapprove of Joe Biden as of the 5th. Okay. This is major. This is huge. And if he keeps dropping like this, in fact, there's stories that have come out that even the Democrat Party does not want him to run again. They literally do not want him to run. I believe the number was somewhere around 60% of people, Americans, general Americans who are likely voters, don't even want him to run again. And he is so out of touch with what Americans actually want that talking about things like abortion and gun control and climate change and everything else but the number one issue. And let me show you this. So this is a poll that just came out from Monmouth, monmouth.edu, and this Monmouth University. And this is a table. They have obviously taken this poll and asked this question multiple times in the last couple of years. But as of right now, inflation is 33% of the 978 responses that they received. Inflation is the number one issue. After that, 15% said gas prices, 9% said the economy, 6% said everyday bills, groceries, etc. Number 5 on the list finally falls at abortion and reproductive rights at a measly 5% of respondents. Then you have guns and gun ownership at a measly 3%. Healthcare costs at 3%. Job security and unemployment is 3%. And college tuition, which is another talking point of the Democrat Party, especially of Biden, that's coming in at a measly 2%. Housing, mortgage, rent, that's another one that my senator harps on all the time. Guess what? That's at 2%. Safety and crime, that's at 2%. And I won't go through the rest of the list. However, I can tell you that the whole January 6th, even though they didn't ask for this, but the whole January 6th committee, which is the other thing that they are pushing to try and discredit Trump and try and get him to not run in 2024, because they know that he will be a formidable force going into that election cycle. Honestly, they are so out of touch. They don't even want to know. I mean, look at the top 4. If we add all those up, so we have what? We have 48% for the top 2. And so then 57% top 3. And then let's see, doing quick math, that's 63%. That is almost 2/3 of Americans who responded to this poll. Almost 2/3 of them called out inflation and the economy and gas prices and everyday bills. All of that is more important to them than anything else in the list. Almost 2/3 of the country is worried about what Biden is doing with inflation and everything else. I mean, this is how out of touch our administration actually is with, and the rest of our Democrat leaders, with the American people. If anything, he would be focusing on the inflation problem and the gas prices and everything else, rather than calling out people who don't even have the ability to change the gas prices, meaning the people who actually have the pumps. So instead of Putin's price hike anymore, it's now focused on the gas station attendants who are, raking us over the coals, supposedly. Speaking about that, I don't have this article, but I did see this, and it does come from the Daily Wire. Apparently, you know how Biden did that whole, hey, we're going to tap into our strategic petroleum reserves, the SPR, and we're going to pull out, 180 million barrels. Well, guess what? 5 million barrels of that stuff is actually slated to go to foreign markets this week. So he's not using it here domestically, or at least that's an indication that he's not using it domestically. He is sending it overseas to places like China, as an example. Okay. This guy, I swear, if he doesn't get impeached, if the Republicans do not get back into power, and provided that they do, I'm fairly certain that they're going to, in 2022, I would not be surprised at all if this guy doesn't get brought up on charges and impeached. And what's even worse is that the Hunter Biden laptop, I mentioned to you about the phone call that Joe Biden was talking about how he never discussed his business dealings with his son, but yet in a voicemail message, he indicates that he doesn't have to worry about Hunter Biden shouldn't have to worry about an article coming out that discusses the connection between Hunter Biden and CEFC over in China. So obviously Joe knew. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't know how anybody can actually even believe this guy. Really, he spent his entire career. He is crooked as the day is long. And yes, I am saying that. It's even amazing to me that people who I would normally think of as being intelligent aren't even considering any of that. Anyway. All right. So. Yeah. You're right, Mom. Hunter is the smartest guy that Joe Biden knows. Considering how baked out Hunter is in some of the photos that have been leaked from his laptop. Yeah, if he is, then man, we are in some serious trouble because Biden's lost. I mean, Obama said it best that Joe Biden, never underestimate the ability of Joe Biden to F things up. I mean, I'm sorry, but if my old boss said that, I'd be a little freaked. All right. Yes. Thank you, buddy. I will. All right. I usually don't necessarily want to talk about these things because I'd rather have more details come out than go and jump into an entire diatribe and possibly find out that some of the details are incorrect. But in this particular case, I do have to bring it up because of the fact that this deals with an issue that is hotly contested within our country today. And it does have to deal with gun control and gun rights. Okay. So Independence Day in Chicago, Highland Park, a young man decided to commit a horrific act. Right now, I don't know what the body count is. I do know that he shot somewhere in the realm of 60 to 80 rounds during his spree. But the one thing that has really been a conversation is talking about red flag laws and, making sure that all background checks are done and that people who usually commit these heinous crimes, they don't get their guns from illegal sources. They get them legally. There's been a lot of that. There's a lot of talking about, and thank you, buddy. Yes, 7 people so far have died. In fact, actually, I think I saw an article where it was a man and a woman who had a 2-year-old son. They orphaned him that day. And they're among the dead. And anyway, this is a very sad situation. And the problem is that the Dems are focused and the left are focused on trying to get rid of the symptom and not the actual disease. This individual, according to new reports that have just come out, first of all, it broke that he did confess today. So he was captured and he did actually submit his confession today. And he's charged with, I guess, the 7 people. He's charged with seven murders at this point. But the sad part about this is that the Dems and the left are looking at the forest and they're not understanding the true reasons for why this is a problem. And if you go back and take a look at all of the mass shootings that we've had, I've talked about this on other episodes. You can go back and listen. The proof is all there. These people have had a history of issues. They've had a history of violence. They've had a history of disturbing behavior. And this guy is no different. Now, they tried to frame this person as a Trump supporter. He came up in some photos at Trump rallies. But he also reportedly had rhetoric from the left as well. So in terms of someone, being able to pin to a particular party, this gentleman, I don't think you can, because he actually played on both sides. He was a mentally disturbed individual. And honestly, at this point, I really blame the parents at this point. And the reason why I say that is because, as a parent myself, I can tell you that when my children did things wrong, I set them right. I set them straight on the road to being productive citizens of society. However, I also knew that if something had occurred where I would see that there would be problems, one of the major things that you want to do as a parent is you want to get them the help that they need. Helping them is your only goal. As a parent, when you have a child who is in need or who is in trouble, you want to help them. But make no mistake, I made it clear, especially to my son, but both my kids, I made it clear that if he ever ran afoul of the law, that I would be there to support him. But I'm not, under any circumstances, going to take on what's there. They have the responsibility of, if they run afoul of the law, they have to stand up in court. They have to go through all of it and accept whatever punishment should the law provide it. I also told him that if he ever got arrested, he can expect to spend the night in jail, because I'm not getting up at 2:00 in the morning to go and try to bail his ass out. That's what I told him, literally word for word. As far as he's concerned, like I said, I'll be there to support him. And if he was wrongly accused, I will help him out in that sense as well. But the challenge here is that at a certain point as a parent, you have to understand that there are times where you cannot help them any further and you need to get them further help. Now, this gentleman, unfortunately, and this article is coming from the Daily Mail. Let me go ahead and bring it up here. This gentleman had a father who, honestly, I really don't know where this guy's head is at. I really don't. Apparently in April of 2019, and again in September of 2019, this gentleman was quizzed by police. And the reason why he was quizzed in April was because his family called the police about a week after the young individual threatened to kill himself. In September, when the police were called back, he threatened to kill everyone, and the cops went ahead and confiscated a count of, according to the article, 16 knives, a dagger, and a sword from the young man. Now, a little while later, maybe a year or two later, the father decides it's a good idea that this young man who threatened to kill the entire family with knives, that it was a good idea to sign for this young man to buy the firearm. And it was not a year later after getting support, not a year and a half later. It was just 2 singular months after the cops had taken away all of those knives. So we're talking in November of 2019, the father went ahead and signed and helped him to buy the firearm. I'll be honest with you. If there isn't a lawyer out there somewhere that can attach culpability to the father just simply for this act, I would not be surprised if this comes out in court, because there is no way that this father cannot have at least some ancillary responsibility toward this event. I can't, it's the whole point that this individual did what he did. I mean, let's be honest here. We have a mental health problem in this country. It's not a gun problem. It's a mental health problem. It's other kinds of issues that are doing this. It's not the ownership of guns. It's not the fact that guns are readily available in our environment. It's the people pulling the trigger that are the problem. Ben Shapiro actually showed a video, which, thank you, Mama, for reminding me of it. Ben Shapiro today showed a video on his podcast today, showed a video of the young man that the young man is reportedly had created of shooting up a school. And apparently this person, this young man was a aspiring rapper, and a lot of his music that he created was wrapped around the idea of death, destruction, shooting up schools, etc., etc. In his confession today, he admitted to the fact that he was actually planning a second shooting had he gotten away from this one, reportedly. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have problems like this until we get a grip on the mental health issues that we have in our society today. And it could be diverted just simply because you have a male role model in the home. Like I've advocated multiple times, dads are incredibly important to the family structure. And the family structure itself is incredibly important across the board. But if we don't accept the fact that we have gone terribly wrong in our handling of mental issues, to where we're doing things like allowing these people to walk free on the streets, to voluntarily take their medications when they've been diagnosed as something with some sort of a mental illness, this is where we have a problem with this. This is where we have an issue in the country with this. Now, it's a very fine and delicate balance to sit here and say that you're for freedom and individual liberty and yet want these kinds of things to happen. But I'm going to throw this out. It's just like a convicted criminal who has had his or her voting rights and weapons related rights taken away from them. This honestly is no different. If you're diagnosed with a mental illness and you don't take your medication and you're known to police like this gentleman was, like the Parkland shooter was, like the Columbine shooters were, like the Las Vegas shooter was, and any other shooters that are out there, if you're that have committed these horrific acts, if you are known to law enforcement, you've already run afoul of things. And yes, they have a Fourth Amendment right. They have a Fifth Amendment right. I understand all of that. But that doesn't mean that we can just let them go like we seem to be doing with a lot of criminals that are out here. Our DAs have got to understand the rule of law and be able to prosecute these people and get them off the streets. You want safety in the streets? Enforce laws. Put down longer sentences. Make it harder and worse for these people to do the things that they're doing than it is to go into court. We had a bunch of shootings once again in Chicago. Outside of this incident, just in Chicago proper. And all of that is not even talked about in the media. And the reason for that is because of the fact that Chicago, while having some of the most restrictive gun laws in the nation, they still have a problem with firearms related injuries and shootings, mostly gang related. So you cannot sit here and tell me that gun control is actually capable of working to stem crime. This has been proven. The 1994 crime bill that Joe Biden touts has been proven by his own Department of Justice to have literally no effect on gun crime. Period. And I saw a video from the Independence Day that was in, I think it was Baltimore or maybe Philadelphia, where some idiots were running around shooting rockets, fireworks at people, just walking down the street. They were driving around these blocks in the streets and they're firing these things at people. They're leveling them down. The fireworks, they're shooting them at the buildings, at the windows. They're trying to, just cause as much destruction and mayhem as is possible. Our world is in a world of hurt. Our world is breaking down right in front of our eyes because of a lack of respect for law and order. You can have all the laws on the books that you want, but you absolutely cannot have any law make any effect if you don't enforce it. And I mean enforce it hard. This is the problem that we have. And I'm seeing in the chat, we've got a couple other things. In Minneapolis, that's right. You probably were right. It could have been in Minneapolis itself. I can tell you, Seattle is no longer safe. My wife and kids won't even go to Seattle. Okay. Orlando, apparently someone started running and caused a panic. It's just all kinds of stuff. You can look and just open up the paper any day and start to see all of these things. But I'm telling you, folks, the Democrats, like Dan Bongino says, are the cause of all your problems. Republicans may not be the solution, but Democrats are more than guaranteed to be the problem. All right, to lighten the mood just a little bit here, and I know I've run over time just a slight bit, but to lighten the mood a little bit here, I have something that I think is kind of a kick in the pants. I certainly chuckled when I saw it. Okay, so our wonderful vice president who can string at least she can enunciate her words. She's not like Joe Biden with mumbles. But the funny thing is that you got to understand, when you do productions, big productions, you want to make sure that everything is perfect. I mean, my little production here, I go through and I make sure, do I have all of my screens up? Do I know where they're going? Is everything spelled right when I put it into the description? I do all of these things to ensure that I'm not caught by mistakes. Well, you can just imagine to have somebody who is in the government of all places, or even so far as any kind of political leaders or whatever, you can imagine how many times things get checked and double checked and triple checked to make absolutely certain that there is no issue. Well, apparently somebody wasn't paying attention. Take a look at this photo. Take a good close look at this photo and really see if there is something wrong in this photo. And I'm not saying that it's the vice president. I'm not saying it's her freaking purple pantsuit or whatever, which she wore brown for the counting or for something. I don't remember what it was. She wore brown. It was horrible. But if you look real close, there's a problem. April's already hit on it in the chat. The problem is the word Louisiana. That's not how Louisiana is spelled. And this took place in New Orleans, Louisiana. Now, the funny thing about it was, at first, nobody really spotted this until a little bit later in the speech or in the interview. But if you look at this, they misspelled Louisiana. They left out the I. It's Louisiana, Louisiana. I don't know how many people could have checked that and gone over that, but they missed it. And it, like I said, it wasn't spotted at first, but after a while, people caught up on it and picked up on it. This just made me chuckle. It's definitely, one of those things that you would think that somebody somewhere would have verified this, or at least noted it in some way, shape, or form. I don't know. Anyway, I hope everybody had a absolutely spectacular Independence Day and celebrated it with all of the pomp and circumstance that it deserves, and rightfully so. That, my friends, is my final Whiskey Musings thought. Do me a favor, if this is your first time to the channel or first time watching a video of mine, if you like what I bring to you and the program, I would appreciate it if you would go to Rumble in particular and sign up. It's free, and go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And also, if you have YouTube and you just don't want to do Rumble, okay, I accept stuff there too. Currently I'm at 187 on Rumble and 59 on YouTube. No, I don't have a pet tonight. I'm sorry. Nobody submitted any. And unfortunately, the one pet that I can grab she is actually, well, I can show you two live, but one in particular I can actually hold. She's actually sleeping behind the production screen here. So anyway, we'll catch up with the pets next time. Submit your pets and your questions to fans@whiskeymusings.online. The link is in the description of the video. And follow me on my social media accounts, because I also announce when I'm getting ready to go live and that kind of stuff. And if something comes up to where I can't go or can't do a live or something along those lines, you can check them out. Also, for those of you who have signed up for the Constitution course, I know I said Saturday I would have something out by Sunday, Monday. Unfortunately, things have just gotten in the way. I promise I'll have more information for you by Saturday's show for when we're going to be meeting and that kind of stuff. And that pretty much kind of covers it. So we'll see you next time on the Whiskey Musings broadcast on Saturday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you next time. Have a good night.